Today I'll be showing you how to make a macrame plant hanger using garden twine. So you can get this in loads of different colours, or you can stick to the kind of traditional brown garden twine if you prefer. First thing to do is to cut 6 lengths of cord. So we're going to cut 3 lengths at 350 centimetres or 3.5 metres and 3 lengths at 300 centimetres or 3 metres. So I always recommend cutting one strand of each length and then measuring the others against it. And if it's a little bit off, it's not a massive problem because it's always really tricky to get them all the same length. Next thing you'll need is either a metal D-ring or a little wooden ring. Then fold each cord in half individually so that the ends match up. Find the middle of them, and then with that looped bit you're going to go through the ring or D-ring, and with the looped section you're going to pull the tail ends through and pull it tight. So you don't have to use 2 colours, I've just gone with that for kind of a good demonstration. But you'll have shorter cords and longer cords, so I'd recommend doing all of the long cords going in one direction and all of the short cords going in the other and alternating them. So to show you what I mean by that, with this next one, you'd match the ends up again. And then when you've got that middle section, as you go through the loop, you'll have one section where it's got a kind of loopier bit on one side than the other. So at this bit you're going to make the loop go in the same direction as that lumpier side, and then when you pull it tight, that lumpier section will be on the other side, like that. So when you do this, it just sits really, really nicely together and just looks much neater. So you keep going on like that, alternating long and short ones and alternating which direction they go in. So I'll do another few of those slowed down and then I'll speed it up a little bit just so that the video is not incredibly long. So this is called a lark's head knot, although in some things like mountaineering apparently it's called a lark's foot knot, and you find that a lot with macrame. Things will have different names depending on what they're used for. So they should all sit quite nicely together like this. So the next thing to do is a square knot. So that should have created 12 strands, and you're going to divide them into 3 groups of 4. And with the right hand ones, you form a loop over the middle cords. The left hand ones go in front of that loop and then round the other side and up on the right hand side. So that makes 1/2 of a square knot. So to make the other half of a square knot, you do the same thing. So a loop on the left hand side, the right hand side goes over that, behind the middle cords and up through there. So those two together make 1 square knot. And as you pull it tight, you just want to make sure that those middle cords are kind of held down, because you should imagine those as kind of like a steel bar. So they're not moving anywhere, they're just a vehicle for the macrame to operate around. So that one again. So the right hand side goes over the middle cords, left hand goes in front of that, behind the middle cords and up on the right hand side. And that's 1/2 of a square knot. So with square knots, it really flattens it out, whereas the next thing we'll do after this will make a really nice spiraled knot. So just make sure as you're doing it that you pull them at the same time so they kind of come up equally, and that you hold on to the middle cord so they don't buckle up and make it messy. So for the next bit, we want to make sure that the shorter cords are in the middle. So for me that's the brown ones, and it makes sense to put a little knot in those just so that you don't get them mixed up and end up using them in your macrame. So the square knot should have created 3 different strands, so we're going to treat those as different sections, and now we're going to do some spiral knots. So spirals are really, really similar to the square knots, but instead of changing side, you do it all on the right hand side. So whereas the square knot flattens everything out, this makes it turn in a really, really nice way. So with this one, instead of having 4 in the middle, you've got 2 cords in the middle and 1 on either side. So a loop with the right hand over those middle cords, the left hand goes in front of that, behind those middle cords and up through the right hand side. So you just keep doing that, and we're going to do 15 spiral knots on each section. So whereas with the square knots, you do 2 knots to make 1 square knot, with this one instead, 1 knot is 1 spiral knot. So you're just going to keep doing this until you've got 15, and then you're going to do it on the other 2 chords as well. So I'll leave this for a little bit and then I'll speed it up in a little while, but you can always wind it back to have a look at it slowed down. So you should already be able to see it's got a really lovely spiral going on there. So it's kind of like a double helix, kind of DNA look to it. So that's it, a little bit clearer. And you can count how many you've done by counting those rows in the middle. So they're kind of like little ladder rungs. So it makes it really nice and easy. And then continue doing that on the other 2 sections as well. The next thing to do is put a bead on the middle chords. So this is a really good point as well to check that your outer chords aren't now shorter than your inner ones. So with mine, the outer chords are now shorter, and I just fancy a bit of a change of colour as well. So I'm going to put the turquoise ones through the bead, and then the next bit I do, they'll be in the middle. So the brown colour will be the predominant colour. Underneath that, do 5 square knots. So that's like you've just been doing, but you swap sides, and one on the right hand side, then one on the left hand side makes 1 square knot. So in effect it's kind of 10 knots if you think of it that way. So again, making sure that you've got 2 chords in the middle and 1 either side, and that you're keeping those middle chords really taut as you do your square knots around it. And again, do the exact same thing on all of the other chords. So again, I'm going to speed this one up a bit, but you can always wind back to the last one if you want to see it a little bit slower. Double check that you've got 5 square knots on each one, and then make sure they're all really good and tight, and you should be able to see the lovely contrast between the square knots and the spiral knots and the different effects they create. Next thing to do is to leave a gap of 10 centimetres, and then you're going to do 4 square knots on each section. So if you've changed out which ones are in the middle, I'd now swap them again. So with mine, the turquoise ones are on the outside again. And with marking off 10 centimetres, you can use a bulldog clip if you want to make sure that your knots don't slide up, but I don't tend to do that. Next thing to do is to leave 5 centimetres, and then you're going to get 2 cords from one section and join them to the nearest 2 cords of another section. So generally this will be a middle and an outer cord to the nearest middle and outer cord in the next section. Then you're going to do 3 square knots, and this just creates a kind of like diamond shape that creates a really nice basket around your plant pot. You can always, as you do this, test your plant pot against it to check this will be the right size for it. So you're going to keep doing this all the way around, so then the remaining 2 from this section will go to the next 2 on the other section. So you'll end up with another 3 lots of 3 square knots. Next thing to do is leave another 5 centimetres, but I'd recommend checking your pot against this first, and if your pot's a little bit bigger, I'd leave a bit more space, so you could leave 7 centimetres or 8 centimetres, depending on how big it is. And then you're going to do another 3 square knots like you did before, so you're going to have that kind of crossing effect, so you get 2 cords from each section to the nearest 2 cords of the other section, and do 3 square knots. So the next thing to do is a gathering knot at the bottom. So you need an extra bit of cord that's 50 centimetres long, and you're going to kind of quarter it, so you've got a quarter of it in a little loop like that, and then a longer section. So you have the looped bit facing towards the top of your macrame, and put it in front of it and kind of make a fist going in front of that. And then you get the longer piece and you're going to wrap it around underneath your fist. And this is just so that you're really condensing those cords and make it really, really tight. And then you're going to wrap that extra long piece around so it's going up towards that looped section. And just make sure you keep it really, really tight and it's kind of like stacked up on top of itself just so it looks really neat. And this just gives you a really good, solid finish that will look really lovely. Then when you get to the top, that long bit goes through that looped section, so it's kind of going straight through it like that, so it comes out the other side. So hold on to that other side of it, and then from the bottom you're going to get that little tail and just grab onto it and pull it, and as you pull it, it should drag that kind of top loop downwards, and with it, it will grab that tail and pull it into that gathering knot. So it makes it really strong and kind of disappears it. Sometimes you have to adjust the top bit a little bit so it doesn't go slack, so just kind of pull on that top bit as well as you go. And then you've got a really lovely, neat looking gathering knot. Last thing to do is put your plant pot in it and just check that it all looks good. And this should fit with those dimensions, this kind of like small terracotta kind of pot. And if it's a little bit too small or too big, you can always adjust that gathering knot to make sure it fits properly. So now you can either leave it as it is, or you can trim it down a little bit so it looks a bit neater. You can always do a braid in it. You could do a big spiral knot or a big square knot underneath it and just finish it off however you like to make it look really nice. So I've done a little spiral knot at the end of mine, but you can do whatever you like. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to message me at kim@darnitworkshops.co.uk. Have a good day. Bye!